The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by Draftkings Sportsbook. Sign up for Draftkings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by BodyBio. Get 20% off any BodyBio order with code. I'm not going to tell you now, but it's a new code. You'll have to listen to the ad for that. BodyBio.com. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners and host goes to get engaged. And Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka. 2 grams of sugar. 100 calories, no carbonation. Iced tea should not have bubbles. Drink Surfside.com. On the show today, no Spike. Spike is out of town. So it is me and CJ and TrillBroDude of the YouKnowBall podcast. We had a nice, lovely, long discussion about the Sixers and about the draft. And then Lauren Rosen, former Sixers sideline reporter, now with the Clippers, who also had a nice, lovely discussion. 2 long, CJ made me pointed out that they were long discussions about the Sixers and what it's like to be a sideline reporter and where the fuck we go from here and maybe a Sixers Clippers finals someday. CJ, Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka is the only official drink of Philly sports. It's iced tea and vodka. It's peach tea and vodka. It's green tea and vodka. It's cucumber vodka. They got it all. And the can is gorgeous. You got to get it wherever you get your canned cocktails. Get it at Citizens Bank Park. Get it at whatever the Pirate Stadium is that took over the Roberto Clemente thing. Not their fault, but funny for me at least. Drink it at Surfside.com. You must be 21 to enter. We're going to start the podcast now. CJ, play the song.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Well, we have with us a very special treat from, there is other Sixers podcast. It is as demented in slightly different ways than we are. It is TrillBroDude from the YouKnowBall pod. Trill, what is going on?
Thanks for having me on. Huge fan of the pod, obviously. It is the best time of the year. The Sixers are not playing like we're used to deep in May, but it came a little bit early this year, and now it's slop season, which is really where we thrive. So thanks for having me on. You
really are the king of slop. Like you've created a culture of slop and coining the culture of slop that I think is something we've all felt for many years, but really distills it into a beautiful word of exactly what we receive.
Yeah, we're all piggies who just love the slop. And I think when that we took the term and we turned it into slop, it just went like so viral, and we did not expect it at all. It was literally just an inside joke in our Discord, and then it just went to the moon, and it's been amazing. It's literally become like part of the personal brand at this point.
Yeah, it really is. You are the king of slop. At what point did last season, which was obviously horrible in many ways, did you flip from, okay, I'm having a miserable time, to actually this is a good thing and maybe better off
Jared
than the
McCain.
alternative?
Jared McCain was the only thing coming out of last season that I felt like super good about. Mm-hmm. Everything else was like basically super negative. But on the whole, I feel fine about how the season went. Like I came out of it basically being like, if we had lost the pick, I would have lost my mind fully.
Absolutely.
Like on the stream, I thought we lost the pick. I don't know if you saw the clip, but I thought we lost the pick for like 10 seconds.
Right.
And I was having a mental breakdown basically. Yeah. So on the whole, I feel fine about it now, but looking at where Jared McCain was pre-draft, to now is like one of the craziest swings I feel like in the course of a year that I've seen from a guard. How he started at Duke, how he started with the Sixers, and where he is now. And if you look at some of like the statistical stuff with him, basically every player who started the way that Jared McCain started his career either became an all-star, a Hall of Famer, or it was like one of those all-time outliers, like, Brandon Jennings, Tyreek Evans.
Yeah.
So to come out of that season with Jared McCain, to come out of that season with the third pick in the draft, it could be so much worse right now than how it felt at certain points. So the second half of the year was actually a little bit enjoyable. I know that obviously you guys thrive on this too, where there's just a no pressure situation where it was just like, we got to not worry about the Sixers, living and dying with the Sixers every single night. It was kind of freeing in a way that I haven't felt since I've started the podcast, because I started the podcast back in 2020.
Yeah.
So that's like a completely different world than what I'm used to as a content creator. And it was incredible to see, just so much random. This is probably the most random Sixers season of my life in terms of the injuries, in terms of expectations, in terms of what we got from McCain, and then obviously Grimes at the deadline was also a huge boon. So,
well, I want to stick with McCain because he played his great, like, holy shit, this is the guy, was really like a month, and so while I'm excited about it, I am also a little bit worried that it's not that much of a sample size to feel like we have, he's obviously better than I thought he was going to be out of the draft, 100%. And I'm scared both to consider him in trades and also to consider him like the next Damian Lillard. And so it's sort of like I'm a little bit frozen. And the Maxey McCain pairing is getting a lot of, especially when you talk about like who to, in a hypothetical Giannis trade or a trade to move up to 2 or whatever it is, people sort of pick sides as who do you prioritize in a Maxey McCain for the future of this team, or do you think that they can play together going forward?
Well, I think next year's just a feel it out year. I feel like until and everyone's like, well, the team will know if Joel's healthy or not. And I'm like, not really, because we know that this injury is kind of weird and the recovery from the meniscus is very up and down. Like, he could be fine now and then he could play for a month and then he could get shut down for the season again. So with Joel's health just being up in the air, I would just take it like super easy and not really rush into sort of any panic trades or making any sort of move. And just on the McCain thing, like, I talk about this with draft people a lot, where I don't want to overreact to the sample, but what are we doing with the draft if not overreacting to a college season, which is similar to the amount of games that Jared McCain has played in the NBA. And at least historically speaking, if you go back to, looking at those stats, like I said earlier, most of the guys end up becoming like high level NBA players, and an NBA sample just means more than a college sample. There are plenty of great college players who play great for a year and then they get to the NBA and they are unplayable or don't look quite as good as they did in college. I mean, look, obviously it's very early in his career, but like, look at someone like Reed Shepherd, who had like a 70% true shooting his freshman year at Kentucky, looked like a clear top pick in that draft, and then looked like a child at times on an NBA court. So I just kind of look at it like, I think the sample's a little bit larger just because if you think about how he finished at Duke too, it really goes back a full calendar year between like January to January where he was playing at a super high level. And I think that is projectable for the future. Now the Maxey McCain thing is a little bit more complicated, but like I said, I just wouldn't rush to, figure that out right now. They're not contending. So like until Joel is healthy, I don't think that they're going to be a contending team. And then if he is healthy, you figure it out from there.
Yeah, I totally agree that trading one of them, moving one of them before you really know what you have, I think would be rash. Where are you? So you said they're not contending. On the Zach Lowe podcast, he had Waz on. Did you listen to that?
I did, yeah.
So they rank the Eastern Conference teams for the next 5 years. And Waz ranked the Sixers dead last. And am I fucking insane? Like, am I absolutely out of my mind? Because like the thing with Joel, obviously you can't bank on his health. No one's saying that you can bank on his health, but he was the best player in the world a year and a half ago. And he comes back from the initial meniscus injury, drops 50 on the Knicks. And then he has a obviously completely injury-riddled season this year and never looked like himself, blah, blah, blah. But people act like he's been dog shit for a decade or that he's like Andrew Bynum. And you're just hoping that he can like scrape together something. Obviously, you can't count on him having like a 50-plus game season, but he's still this fucking guy. And it doesn't feel insane. It feels insane to me for a lot of reasons, but it doesn't feel out of the realm of possibility for him to just have had okay, I came back too early. I got to figure some stuff out health-wise. And he comes back looking similar to what Kawhi did, looking like a slightly worse version of the guy he's always been. And that guy is still a massive floor and ceiling raiser. That the idea of assuming that they're the last team in the East compared to like the Hornets and the Wizards and the Hawks and these just nowhere Bulls teams that are going nowhere. It truly is like, it makes me feel crazy hearing other people talk about it like that.
I think we need to put it in context with Waz has always been an Embiid hater, and he also is a Sixers skeptic, which look, we've given him plenty of evidence.
Absolutely.
To be a 100% Sixers skeptic. And I'm somewhere in between you two where I'm like, I need to see Joel literally be even like close to Joel for a month before I make any sort of like grand proclamations about where we're at in this window.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking like, even if Joel, like you said, even if Joel is, Kawhi was what? If he played the whole season and looked like he did, he probably makes the All-Star team. Yeah. Is Joel closer to what young Joel is, just a completely different version of him in terms of like, he's like more like a third team All-NBA guy, fringe All-NBA guy, All-Star. And then we also have Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain. You hope that Paul George can obviously get healthy this upcoming season as well. There's a lot riding on this third pick is I think what it comes down to, where it feels like if they really nail the third pick, then there's no way you can think. I even think if Joel isn't like available, I think that you can't say that they have the grimmest outlook, the grimmest future compared to those teams that you just said, because like, yeah, I mean, the Washington Wizards, how many NBA players do they have?
I don't know.
The Charlotte Hornets, how many NBA players they have? The Brooklyn Nets, like these teams are the Hawks. At least you could talk me into like Jalen Johnson, and I'm not a big Riche guy, but like Riche is going to be a nice NBA player.
Yeah.
Trae Young, sure, they still have Trae, but like the teams that were being compared to, even if you took Joel completely off the roster, we have more to look forward to than most of those teams, I think. Like LaMelo has similar issues, but also is young and seemingly doesn't want to be there for the Hornets.
Right. The
Nets are just a blank slate right now. And the Wizards, I mean, once again, I know they're young, they're rebuilding, but they really don't have a Maxey and McCain to look forward to, even if, Joel isn't healthy. Yeah.
I think the thing with Joel for me, and I've criticized Joel plenty. It is very bizarre to me how people seem to take real delight in his injury struggles. And that is fucking insane. I think like if Tatum tears his Achilles and if everyone was like, ha, it happened again. Like that's what you get for playing this many minutes or like he can't, it was bound to happen. Like, it's just a very weird thing watching people like truly show their ass talking about Joel, who is not a perfect player and not a perfect leader or whatever, but like is a person that tries very hard and was an MVP and finished second MVP voting twice. It feels very bizarre to me how people around basketball talk about Joel, and it makes me angry.
It's really weird because it's like he's just become a punchline. I don't understand. I think it really is this new like fandom on Twitter and kind of the NBA space in general, TikTok, all this social media stuff where people like legitimately thrive on negativity. And at one point, because Joel's, the only MVP to never make a conference finals, he has all these like I guess, like you said, like disappointing playoff moments and obviously has had the availability things throughout his whole career. But the way that people talk about, I think what you're trying to say, and the thing that frustrates me the most about the whole conversation is like they make it into like a personal responsibility argument as opposed to like his body has been failing him for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a new thing. Like, do people forget that he didn't play the first 2 years in the NBA because he literally couldn't get on the court? Like there are so many examples of this throughout his career where it's like, yeah, I don't think Joel Embiid doesn't want to play basketball. I think that right now he might not have part of his meniscus, which is kind of important for playing NBA level basketball. And that Knicks series it's very funny because I'm kind of in the same bucket as you. I've listened to you guys for years and I feel like we've kind of generally agreed where we've been critical of Joel in, certain moments and certain times. Even though at the end of the day, he is still our guy, but that Knicks series was like the thing that I like won me back over fully on Joel, where I was like, the hate has gone way too far. This guy absolutely gives shit.
Yeah.
Like he's going out there with a broken face, his knees all fucked up. And then ever since it's become even worse. And like, I know like with Knicks fans and Celtics fans, like we riff back and forth but like Joel has not even been able to play basketball for like, going on a calendar year here, has not been able to stay on the court. Like at what point does that stuff kind of like go by the wayside and end? Yeah.
I think when I look at the Sixers compared to other teams in the East, obviously Maxey McCain, and you can like go down the roster and go like, okay, interesting player, Quentin Grimes, Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, like NBA rotation players kind of thing. Plus the number 3 pick. I would rather have that than so many other teams in the East. And then plus you add a percentage chance. I'm not saying it's a huge percentage chance, but a percentage chance that Joel and Paul George are healthy. And if that is the case, then like there's a chance that the Sixers finish like a top 3 seed in the East this year. And that's that plus the like youth that they have and their picks is just so much better than so many other teams' situations. And I think it's probably just because like people like to, since the Sixers were so irrelevant for like 15 years, let's say 10 years, process happens, everybody become like public enemy number 1, even though several teams did it in the past and several teams have done it since. And then it just became very easy to punch down to the Sixers, which is fine. Probably partly our fault. They truly like not making conference finals is pathetic. And there's reasons to punch. I'm not disputing that whatsoever, but it feels like there's a weirdly sick joy that people get in ripping on Joel. And also Daryl in ways of just because he's like, specific and off-putting to some and everything, whatever.
I think it's what they represent.
Yes.
Is what they like you said, like Joel is like the face of the process, literally called himself the process at one point. And then people generally have a disdain for Daryl because of the analytics and, the front office stuff that, look, I understand it can get nauseating at times. Obviously we talk about it a ton as
sure.
the Slop Kings over at YouKnowBall, but at the same time, like I do think that it especially with the Joel stuff, it just felt like it has gone way too far. Like at least wait until he can play basketball to make fun of him. I feel like you're just literally kicking him while he's down at this point.
Yeah. But I do. Yeah, I think it, in all my frustrations with the team and how much of a joke they have been for largely ever, I want it so bad. Like, have you considered, I do it from time to time and we talked about it on the podcast, but like, how do you, I'm fast forwarding you to a year from now. The Sixers are in the conference finals. This is a hypothetical, obviously. The Sixers are in the conference finals.
You didn't have to say
yeah, for sure. They're in the conference finals and it's like a closeout game 6 and they win to go to the NBA finals. How do you react? Like what does that look like for you? Where is your concept of yourself at that point?
Well, before when in 2023, when it looked like they were going to make the conference finals, we joked that we were going to do what the Knicks fans literally did this year, where we were going to like throw a parade and go insane. The NBA finals, I think at this point, like we've said, we're past like a feel good conference finals appearance just because of all the shit that has happened over these years. Not to say that it wouldn't be, amazing, but if we got to the NBA finals, I literally don't even know how I would react because it just seemed like with the Eagles, we've just become so accustomed to winning that I'm I expected them to win the Super Bowl. They're a dominant team. They're, well run and they know what they're doing and they're kind of the class of the NFC. Whereas with the Sixers, if it happened, I literally couldn't even tell you because I can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Like I really can't imagine. I've talked about this before, but like Mike Chiodo, my buddy, he always talks about the fact that we've lost every narrative battle for the last like 7 years.
All of them. Like
every single one. If you go year by year, I thought about this earlier today, where if you go back to 2019, 2020, Jimmy Butler makes the NBA finals when we let him walk. Okay. 2021, obviously the Ben Simmons thing happens. We lose Ben Simmons. Any arguments we had about Ben, about other players, blah, blah, blah. Also, the Bucks win the finals, who are supposed to be like one of our rivals. Okay. 2022, the Celtics make the NBA finals. We lose to Jimmy and the Heat again. 2023, the Nuggets win the NBA finals after Joel beats Jokic for MVP. And then last year, we lose to the Knicks. And then this year, even the Knicks break the conference final streak.
Yep.
And we're now stuck with the literal, like what they would call the quote unquote poverty teams, the Wizards, the Hornets, all that. So I say this by saying I literally don't even know how I would react because like
that's a lot.
There's no precedent for it. Like I was 11 when they made the NBA finals in 2001. And that's what got me into basketball. So I have a very precious memories of my start of my basketball fandom, but I don't remember much about it, and I literally don't know how I would react if they got, especially if it was with Maxey, McCain, and Embiid. It would be so special. I literally don't even know how I would react.
It's unfathomable. When I think about it, I like make myself cringe by how. I mean, I look at the video of me on stage at the lottery party when they made the commercial, and I'm just like, who is this guy? What is going on? Why is he doing
you
that?
You're in your element, though. You guys,
I know.
You're literally built for that.
We're built for that.
As a fan base, we are, and like you said, like you guys are definitely a huge part of that. But like we are built for, everything didn't go right this season, but we got the third pick in the draft.
Yeah. Sit right there because we're talking about our sponsor, Draftkings Sportsbook. We are very close, my friend, CJ, to the NBA Finals, although Game 6 is tonight of Pacers-Knicks, which we'll get to in a second. And since the finals are almost here, every second counts. And with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, you're not just watching history. Guess what? You're betting on it. And so now is your shot to get in on the action. Player props, and plops. You can see if maybe there's any plop-based bet. Game lines, live bets. It's playoff betting at its finest. If you're new to DraftKings, you can bet $5, and if your bet hits, cash in $300 in bonus bets. Okay, so Knicks Pacers, Game 6 tonight in Indiana. Pacers currently 4-point favorites. CJ, who do you got?
I obviously very much so want the Pacers to win. I do think it would be very funny if the Pacers lose and then go back to the Garden and win Game 7. That would be, I think, most comical outcome of this whole series.
That's very true. Also, I like first point scorer. I think about that for football more often, but they have it at DraftKings for basketball. Mitchell Robinson. Yeah, a little scary. Is it scammy?
Scary.
Scary is funny.
Terrifying.
But you could just go throw Mitchell Robinson, who's going to start, is plus 1,300 to score the first bucket. You could totally see them like running a lob dunk for him first play of the game. Maybe try that.
I can't predict that stuff.
You can't predict it, but I'm doing it. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code RTRS. That's this podcast. Code RTRS for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21. See show notes for details. Well, so who do you like at 3? Where are you at with the draft right now? Because they need to be able to do both, which is have a shot to maximize a healthy Joel season if or when it ever comes, but also counting on that would be ludicrous, and you need to plan for the future as well. So how do you think about that, and where do you think they can do both?
I'm kind of stuck right now. Like I have it's very weird. We've talked about this draft a lot, and the fact that it's kind of like the 2016 draft in that like there's a clear number 1 overall pick, which obviously we got Ben in that draft.
Yes.
Then 2 being Brandon Ingram. That's like the Dylan Harper of that draft. And then from like 3 to like 9, it's kind of like the same tier of player, I feel like.
Right.
Where I could see their careers going one direction or the other. And I have landed on just take the best player available because I don't think that there's a perfect enough fit. And because of this weird scenario that you just laid out that we're in, where we're stuck in between, like, we want to be good next year, but also if Joel isn't healthy, we need to take the best long-term prospect. You don't get many opportunities like this at the top of the draft. But there are question marks about literally all of these. If you see my display name, I have VJ, Connor, Trey at 3.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously think that all of those guys have serious fit issues with the current team. We just talked about the Maxey McCain fit. Grimes might be their 3rd or 4th best player if Joel isn't healthy. And then it's like, okay, I know I had a tweet from a few years ago that I said, if Sixers Twitter were building a team, it would just be Joel Embiid and 14 guards. And it feels like we're on that pathway right now, where it's literally, you have to acquire wings and forwards at some point. But the wings and forwards that you could potentially draft at 3 all have flaws in certain ways. I know a lot of people are super high on Ace Bailey. The only thing that I worry about with Ace is the fact that I feel like everyone is projecting him. Oh, he'll just be a plug and play role player. And then he's in interviews and he's like, well, I'm like the next Kevin Durant. And like, I don't take bad shots. And it feels like if you bring in a guy like that, even though the positional fit is great and the idea of what he can be as a player is awesome, does he want to be that? Does he fit with what you're trying to build moving forward? And if your stars are healthy, does he complement them in a way? So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like I don't feel super great about any of these prospects in terms of their fit with the Sixers, with VJ, Connor, Trey. But in terms of trying to kind of thread the needle of someone who can come in and play with us, and then long-term could also be a good fit, because we don't know what the roster is going to look like in 2 years, potentially. That's where I feel like I feel the most comfortable with those guys. But if you want to take a bigger swing, there are guys to take big swings on in this draft.
Yeah, if the Ace Bailey thing, we've talked about him a lot, obviously. If he was the guy that the people who love him say he was, then absolutely. That's the perfect kind of guy. Pretty big, athletic 4, can shoot off movement, can score in isolation, is a pretty good help side defender. I think that is the perfect kind of player that you'd want. Is kind of ferocious, is kind of like a motherfucker, like plays with attitude. Like you need that a little bit, high motor, whatever. But he does take terrible shots, and he wasn't hitting enough of them. And he just never, the biggest thing for me is like, find me a clip where he blows by anyone. Find me a clip where he gets past anyone, even at the college level, even against fucking Northwestern. Like find me a clip where he is just like, my first step gone. You look at Anthony Edwards' college tape, and it's like nonstop. He's just blowing past people and getting to the rim. And Ace Bailey just like never did that. Like he can catch a lob off the weak side cut, but he doesn't, whether it's the slow first step or just limited handle or just falling in love with pull-up jumpers. I need to see more than that to just assume, oh yeah, he's just going to do that at the NBA level. He just never does it. You watch, even watching his highlights, he just never does it.
The guy he gets, like the people that are kind of higher on him and make the argument that if you're making like the tools bet and the skill bet, is Jaylen Brown, someone that comes up a lot, which funny enough,
also the 3rd pick in that 2016
draft, right?
Yeah, who came in as pretty raw and like couldn't really handle that kind of thing.
Jaylen as an athlete is just so far ahead of where Ace is right now.
Yeah.
Now there are definitely similar concerns about the handle, and Ace is a better shot maker right now and shooter than Jaylen was when he was coming out. But I remember during that cycle, and I remember going back actually revisiting it recently, where Jaylen even with all of the flaws in his game, was someone who lived at the rim and lived at the line. And those were at least like star potential upside indicators with him. Ace is really, I completely agree with what you're saying in terms of, I do worry about if you were just to give him the ball and asked him to create for himself, is there a world where he can even create for others? Is there a world where he can kind of go on and off the ball and flow within an offense? That's the thing that I worry about the most with him. Whereas I think you talked about it a little bit, where it's more like Jabari or more like Michael Porter Jr., where like if you're looking at like the more optimistic outcomes for him, that's the style of player that you would hope that he could be on this Sixers team. And that's probably just like, once again, like Ace has been a star his whole life.
Yep.
He's massive, he's skilled, he's fairly athletic in different ways. Not like you said, like he doesn't have like the first step, the burst that like some of these other guys do.
Yeah.
But he has star qualities about him. And I think it's good. There's going to be a real learning curve in the NBA. I think John Hollinger said this, but I've been saying it for 2 months. He feels like the kind of guy that you would want to get on a second contract or a second team.
Sure.
Where it's kind of like what's happening with Jabari in Houston now, where like he doesn't play all that much. You could go back to like Andrew Wiggins, Aaron Gordon, these guys that are drafted to teams and thought to be like savior types. And then they get on a second team and they readjust their role and they become impact players. I think there's a world where that absolutely can happen for Ace. I'm just skeptical that the team that drafts him is going to draft him because they want him to be a role player. I think they're going to want him to be a star. And I think that there's going to be a huge learning curve for him in the NBA if he can even ever reach those heights.
Totally. There's not that many guys that you go like, let's spend a top 3 to 5 pick on a guy who is as raw as he is and doesn't have a high basketball IQ, doesn't create for others. It's like, yeah, it's going to take him time. Like, what's the example? I think Jaylen Brown is one example of a guy, but I thought Jaylen is a way better creator for other players.
If you want to be optimistic, Jaden McDaniels,
for sure, but he was taken like what 28th in the draft.
You're right.
Like
they don't take swings. Like that's the thing. That's the difference between Morey and that version of Danny Ainge to me. Where Danny Ainge was literally just taking swings. The Celtics were kind of a blank slate at the time. 2016, they're entering a rebuild. They're taking. Morey has always been like a calculated, production-based guy. Now, has he taken swings on guys like Maxey, who might have had a weird college year and didn't, absolutely. That was also the 21st pick in the draft. And his job wasn't on the line. He literally just got the job. So like now we're looking at a scenario where his job is potentially on the line. And if he misses the pick, I have a hard time seeing where he just goes, well, we just throw all that weird stuff about his college year out the door. And we're betting on the tools and the skills, because his history kind of shows that he goes in the other direction and he bets a little bit on a blend of pedigree, production, tools, all of that. So I'm kind of with you in that, like, teams don't really take those swings at the top of the draft all that much when considering the circumstance that he came from Rutgers.
Yeah, I think when I was just looking, because Derek posted something on Twitter or on Blue Sky about like the kind of player that he is, and even though he has those tools, like we're talking about, like he's going to take some time, he's raw, blah blah blah, and the list of players that have become all-star level players in the last 20 years who were taken that high and that raw, to me, is like Jaylen Brown and Russell Westbrook. And I think both of those guys are more athletic, more, let's say, fluid in their athleticism than Ace. Not just jumping high, but like Russell Westbrook's obviously one of the fastest and most athletic basketball players ever. And Jaylen, I thought his athleticism reveals itself in much more dynamic ways than just like Ace can run and jump, but I'm not seeing it like on the burst like we're talking about other things. So make the case against trading down to that lower part of the same tier type of player.
I'm probably the wrong person to make this case because I'm a little bit of a coward when it comes to this. And I'm like, no.
I think it's fair. I'm being cowardly in this mindset. I don't want to be the one to pick from the most expensive at 3 of the flawed options. I'd rather let somebody else be the first out the door to get shot by the enemy.
I've been saying this for a month.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, man, it would be really nice if we could just move back to like 7 and like just draft Con and get an extra first or maybe get a player that fits with this team.
For sure.
But because we've thought about it a lot, like we've talked about this in our Discord as well, which is, would Daryl have preferred just to get 6 and be like, well, now I can take like an analytical darling like Con or Colin Murray Boyles or whoever. I don't know. I know Derek Queen isn't an analytical darling, but at that range, you might feel more comfortable swinging on someone like him if the other guys are off the board.
Yes.
I think the case against it is that, once again, you don't get this opportunity many times, and you might get it wrong for sure. But if you do get it right, I mean, it literally is franchise altering if you hit on the 3rd pick in the draft. Now, this range of the draft, this 3 to 5 range, is always somewhat of a mixed bag. I feel like it's gotten better recently. Like, it doesn't feel like you get quite as many, absolute busts. Even the busts nowadays are like Jalen Green's going to play in the NBA for 15 years. Like I don't think that there are guys that are just absolutely terrible and out of the league quite as quick as there used to be. Now, you always have exceptions to that. Obviously, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, even those guys are kind of still hanging around. But I think the argument for picking at 3 is that you don't get this opportunity much. You want to be a good team the next few years. And if you do nail this pick, and it's not like I said, I like VJ and Con and Trey, but like, if they don't hit their higher end outcomes, and then the guy who you traded down from at 3 hits his highest end outcome, let's say it's Ace, or let's say it's someone else, then it feels like you just have egg all over your face. And you're like, well, great. I'm glad we made the cowardly safe move when we could have, taken a risk and gotten a true like ceiling raising player.
That is the case. It is that like, Daryl's never picked this high, so we don't really know what his philosophy is at this point, but we can surmise it's take the guy with the highest star potential, which he never has had the chance to do. He traded for Harden. That is like in Houston, that is the moment that he did the like, I'm going to make this happen and find a guy that I think could be a star. He hasn't done that since. And so you look at it and go, when am I going to get this chance again? When is the team going to be able to find how fortunate we are to have the worst season of all time and put a guy next to Maxie McCain to add to this like future young core for the next generation? You can do that because you're like, we just can't trust Joel and Paul George to be the guys that they used to be, which I understand. But I want to know, I would love to know, be a fly on the wall of like Sixers front office and scouting meetings and conversations and go like, someone is going to go, this is the guy. And there are teams around the league that are picking in that 3 to 11 range that are thinking like, we believe that this is the guy. We think this guy is a franchise type player. I just don't think that they're going to be right.
Yeah, I look at this range, and so I think there's 3 options for them that they're this is information. This is just ideas. Yeah. So the 3 guys I think that they're probably considering, I think they probably are considering Ace, even with my,
they have to. Yes.
Even with my, I think they absolutely are considering Ace. I think the guy that is probably more of like viewed as a safe pick is probably VJ, because worst case scenario with VJ, he's DeAnthony Melton. You know what I mean? Like a fringe starter, like guy who's going to last in the league. The best case scenario is that you get like I don't think I'm quite as high on his upside as some people are, just because like the handle, the pull-up shooting, all that stuff. He wasn't particularly great in the half court in college. He's also still very young, very raw, just like Ace. And he does have a little bit better like athletic tools in general than Ace, I would say.
Totally.
But the upside idea with him is maybe more of like if you're super lucky, maybe like eventually he can grow into like a Drew Holiday type or something. Mm-hmm. More in probably realistic outcome is like Jalen Suggs or Derek White level player. Yeah. And once again, would you take that with the 3rd pick in the draft? Sure. But the 3rd pick in the draft is usually reserved for big swings. And the guy that I know that you've when I listened to your episode where you talked about Trey Johnson, that I think that is like, once again, not necessarily a Daryl pick from the production standpoint, but from the you're taking a huge swing, the guy who I think has potential to be the best shooter in the draft, has better tools than someone like Con Knippel, who I like has longer arms. Obviously he's not quite as big as Con, but he, at least in theory, has that star potential upside because he's a really good ISO player. He can create for himself. And I think the passing and playmaking is underrated when he wants to do it. He just didn't really get a chance to show it all that much. But
bad system at Texas. Yeah.
I mean, the coach got fired. It was a mess that year with Texas. And I kind of just look at Trey and I go, you have to be sure, because there's almost no way that he can play with Maxey and McCain. Like with Con or VJ, I think I can squint and I can get there with them, where I'm like, all right, look, Con might be able to play in some 3-guard lineups at the 3 because he's big. And, the fact that offense would just be so synergistic and flow so well. Yeah. And VJ also, I think, might be able to play with at least Grimes and some 3-guard. It's going to be hard for Trey with, like, I know that you said on the episode, you were saying, like, if you draft someone and they start as like a role player and then they turn into a star eventually, I don't really see that with Trey. Like, I think that if you're taking the bet on Trey, you're betting that he's a star. And if you're wrong, you're probably fired. So it's one of those things where, like, Trey to me is more of like I'm not saying this in a negative way. I see him as more as like a bigger, longer Cam Thomas right now.
Yeah.
And if he's that kind of player off your bench getting buckets, he's going to give you value on his first contract. And then eventually, I agree. I just don't really know if he has a role player skill set. And that's kind of the thing with like Ace and Trey, is that, like, you're probably taking them more as star bets when, like, what's the fallback option?
Yeah, I think bigger, longer Cam Thomas is a fair comp right now. I think Trey is a better and more willing passer, and I think he gets off the ball a lot quicker than Cam Thomas does.
Yep. And
his willingness to shoot off movement, I think, is what puts him high up for me. And the fact that he does have a 6'10" wingspan and tested really well athletically. Like, you put that together, and like, there's the reason why I say like role player that can grow into it is I can see him having a role right now, which is movement shooter, young movement shooter, Isaiah Joe, whatever. He does that maybe, and he's going to take some time before he's like a helpful defensive player. He didn't really show it at Texas. That would be something he needs to do, but he has the physical tools to do it if he sets his mind to it. And then because of how good he is in isolation and how good his numbers were as the number one option, scoring 20 a game in the SEC, that's just really talented for me. And he's just got to put the thing he has to do is put his athletic skills into practice on the court. And that's sometimes hard for players to do. Be like, I'm athletic in a penny, jumping and trying to hit the fucking high jump machine. But with the ball in my hands against a defender, I play much more low to the ground and don't give those don't optimize that athleticism as much.
I've said it with Trey so many times at this point. I guess really the only guy that I can think of that has not been able to apply their, like, long arms, athleticism, quote unquote, on the defensive end is Anthony Simons. It feels like he's kind of the lone exception. I'm like, you got a 6'10" wingspan. How bad can you be on defense? Yeah. Like, you have to get to a point where at least you're not the worst defender on the court if you have that kind of build. And once again, we've seen time and time again where these guys, we see it in the NBA, we see it in college. If you're a on-ball creator and you're asked to go do everything for your team, then the defensive stuff, like, usually falls by the wayside. Like, you usually struggle on the other end, whether it's effort, stamina, whatever. It's tough to be good on both ends, especially when you don't have a ton of help. And that is, once again, that's the argument in favor of Trey getting better on defense. But like you said, I think he has a very, very long way to go on that end.
And we take another break because we're talking about our friends at BodyBio. Now, CJ, we had a code that was the name of your dog for quite some time, which supplanted me and my stomach issues as the code for a long time. And then briefly there was a code based on the number 1 draft pick, who the Sixers will not be getting in flag. And we have a new code for BodyBio to get 20% off any order. And that code is, for us specifically, and this podcast, August.
Should have been the code for much longer.
Yes, it should have been good since December.
Yeah.
It's been August. We're in the longest August. The weather's heating up. We got a heat wave in LA this weekend. And August is the code that you need. Remineralize. Remineralize for BodyBio. Minerals are so important. You've heard them all the time. Sometimes you're mining minerals, and that's not what it's about. This is about minerals for your body. And a major issue today is our food is grown in soil that's been stripped of mineral content because of over farming. I know this. I don't have to read the ad copy because I just know this so well. Our food is less nutritious and depleted of these essential minerals compared to 50 years ago. So if you're like me, and also Mike and Jess from BodyBio, who's our friends over there, you may be heavily filtering your water, filtering them, removing the bad contaminants, but also sometimes ruins the good minerals. And so to ensure you're obtaining a naturally balanced, broad spectrum of minerals, Sixers could use some minerals, BodyBio created Remineralize. It's sourced from dried salt beds in Utah and is minimally processed. Quick and easy way to ensure that you get your daily dose of minerals. Also, which I always say, Gut Plus if it's available, Butyrate if it's available, which I've been taking all the time, 2 a day, helps my stomach, being regular. And also when I play basketball, which I am playing tomorrow, always the Elite, which is always very good. It's a staple. You got to have a little thing. I did do the spike, took a shot of it the other day. Forget when I was doing it. I didn't have time to do a full thing. And I was just like, I'm just going full shot. And it is salty.
Yeah.
It is quite salty.
But you kind of want that. Like when you have like a pre-workout shot of something, like you want to get that zing in your body.
Yeah. Give me a zing. Give me a little zing. So go to bodybio.com, use code August. And I believe this should be the code for the rest of time until the Sixers are good for 20% off any order, bodybio.com.
I just want to do a Con pitch real quick.
No, let's hear it. I like Con. He is undisputably like going to be solid. And it's just a matter of, is he going to be better than, Corey Kispert? Sure.
So here's my thing with Con. I did this whole thing yesterday on the podcast where I talked about the aesthetic bias with Con, where like he's slow, he looks goofy. His name is Con Knipple.
That hurts. That's a negative.
Not great. Not a great name. Yeah. If you're going based on these guys who generally hit. We're big on the draft name stuff. Every once in a while, you get someone with a bad name that hits. We've said VJ Edgecombe sounds more like a linebacker than a basketball player. Trey Johnson,
sick name, though.
It's a great name. Trey Johnson sounds like a star. Ace Bailey sounds like a star, maybe a role player.
Yeah.
Con Knipple certainly does not sound like.
No. It's the kind of thing that you would say if he ends up like a bust. You could see it for years. People going, we drafted Con Knipple.
Yes, exactly.
And we took fucking Con Knipple. Like you can just see everything forever. Yeah,
and that's the argument that I had Mark Henry on my podcast yesterday, and he was talking about it. He's like, imagine if you draft Con and then one of Ace, VJ, or Trey go right behind him and they hit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it. I understand it.
That would happen. But one of those is going to hit.
Sure.
Like 100%.
Yeah. So I get it. I understand. And there's the athleticism argument. There's all types of arguments. He was, I think, underrated in college in terms of if you look at how he produced with Cooper Flagg on the court and off the court, where when Coop went to the bench, he was there. He was one of the main ball handlers, and he was someone who can run a pick and roll, who was huge for Malawach, who's also going to be a top 7 or 8 pick in this draft. Yeah. He was huge for his development on offense because he was their best lob passer. He was their best decision maker with the ball. I think his passing is underrated on the ball, off the ball.
Agree.
And he has potential to be the best shooter in this draft.
Sure.
So that combination of dribble, pass, shoot, combined with high feel and like
movement off ball also.
And like we talk about the idea of what Trey could be on defense. Con is a better defender right now than Trey Johnson is. Now, if you're making the long-term bet, I understand that.
Yeah.
Con was not a bad college defender. Now, was his context really good? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, you have Cooper Flagg and Malawatch on the back end. It's going to look a lot better and you also had Sion James, who's a point of attack defender. You have all of the things working in your favor if you're Con on the defensive end. But I do think the unique combination of those skills on offense plus not being a disaster on defense and being like led the EYBL in scoring twice, I believe, and is doing this all with, like I said, limited athleticism. So if you want to sell the ceiling short, fine. But I think there's like a realistic world where he returns top 5 value in this draft in terms of, can he be? I think my whole thing for this cycle has been like, he's not quite as athletic as these guys, but somewhere between like Desmond Bain and Austin Reeves. Yeah. Where it's like the shooting off the ball is just electric. Like he can shoot in a number of ways. The off the dribble shooting probably Trey's better at shooting off the dribble. Ace is better at shooting off the dribble. Con at lower level shot off the dribble, didn't shoot off the dribble a ton in college, which is something that would really unlock his ceiling. And then the most underrated part of his game is probably he might have potential to be a grifter. We've talked about this, like with like the 2 feet in the paint stuff, getting guys off balance and drawing contact.
So physical with that shoulder.
Really physical, really crafty, smart player, doing all the white guy tropes right now. But Con is like, once again, the idea of it is scary because of exactly what you just laid out, but like has pretty much everything Daryl looks for in a prospect. His name is just Con Knipple and he looks goofy.
And I do think at an NBA level, he is going to struggle to cover guards.
Sure.
I think it's just undeniable. I can see, because of Trey's wingspan, I can see like Con works harder on defense right now and he knows where to be more. But if I close my eyes and think about a playoff game in 5 years, I see Con every time being like, anybody pointing to him, be like John Morant, being like, give me this guy, right? Bring him over to me.
And we have it's funny because we're in a unique scenario where normally I'm like, if you're a team drafting third, why are you worried about that?
Yeah.
We're in a unique scenario where you actually have to kind of worry about that stuff a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because normally it's like the Wizards. And I'm like, do you really care if Con Knipple can play in a play? You've barely ever made the playoffs. If you're the Hornets, like you don't worry about it. The Sixers are in a weird position where they actually have to consider both things, which is really that's probably the argument for trading down, is that you'll get multiple swings at guys, whether it's in this draft or the next draft, whatever it is. And you can kind of thread that needle of getting an impact player now and then also keeping your options open down the line.
There's just so many good trade down options that I feel like.
What's your favorite?
I really like all of them. I wonder if Houston would trade Tari Eason.
Oh yeah.
Then that is one, because I do think there's some like superstar upside with Tari Eason. Like I do think he could. I'm not saying
Tari. I've loved Tari since college. He's always been one of my guys.
Yeah.
He's very ace coded.
For sure.
The handles a question mark, the decision making. Yeah. The defense is undeniable. Like the defense is amazing. But he's a willing role player on offense already. Sure.
And I think there's a little Jaden McDaniels there. And Jaden is like popping for the Wolves in a way that you're like, maybe this guy can be something more than just the assumed like defensive stopper.
I love Tari. I mean, I've always been a big Tari guy.
Herb Jones. Always been a Herb Jones guy. A little bit worried. I think with both Herb and Tari, you're like, okay, big playoff series. You're counting on this guy for 32 minutes. Can they? Is their shooting really good enough to stick? Is their shooting really good enough to make defenses cover them? So that would be the question. But I think Herb trading down to the Pelicans with Herb would be awesome, especially now that it's very fucked up. The Zion allegations and lawsuit is extremely disgusting and makes me very upset. But especially if the Pelicans are looking for their next franchise guy and they go, yeah, we for now several reasons we can't trust Zion to be that guy. We're willing to trade a role player in Herb, who's on a very nice contract, to move up from 7 to 3. I think that would be interesting. Or just like trading down with the Wizards or the Nets and picking up another pick in the mid first round, drafting somebody like Nick Clifford, who I think is awesome. I'm such a Nick Clifford guy. You talked about VJ Edgecombe being like, maybe that guy is Derek White, maybe that guy is Drew Holiday. I think Nick is like a very kind of automatic high level role player right away.
Josh Hart variant.
Yeah, Josh Hart for sure.
Yeah.
And I like
Herb thing though.
Yeah, tell me.
Just two things. If we're trading with the Pelicans, I would literally rather trade 3 straight up and figure out the salary and get Trey Murphy. Because I think that if they're willing to just trade, and if we're believing the Kevin O'Connor report, and they're willing to trade anyone on their roster.
Sorry, I didn't see the report. This
was 2 days ago,
okay,
where he said, I think the Pelicans are willing to explore. They don't view anyone on their roster as untouchable for the right offer.
Yeah.
And I think that Trey Murphy is the guy, because we talk about Herb is on a good contract right now. He's also not for long. Like, it's like, I think it's this year and next year, and then he's a free agent.
Yeah.
First off, Trey Murphy should fire his agent for letting him sign that contract. Because when I was shocked to learn that he makes $25 million next year.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to get to that number without including like Paul George or Maxey or whoever. Mm-hmm. But there's a world where you can get there. It would be a complicated situation because you would probably have to use the Nets cap space and send them something, because it would literally be a 5-for-1. It's like Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon, whatever. But if you're sending the third pick, like, this is not a scenario where they trade down. And also the Herb situation, like, I just feel like Herb's value's got to be more than 4 spots in a draft where it's a kind of a flat tier. Now, if we had the Dylan Harper pick, and they were like, we'll give you Herb in 7, because we believe in Dylan Harper that much, I could see that. I think the league kind of feels the same way we do with this 3 through 8, 3 through 9 tier, where it's somewhat of a flat tier, and they're not going to give up like a genuinely good role player to move up unless they fall in love with Ace or they fall in love with Trey or whoever.
That's the thing for me, is that, and I've kind of said it a couple of times, I don't think there's as much groupthink within organizations and within scouting departments and front offices who believe very highly in their own ability to identify talent. I think we are cowards and have this perspective of cowards. And there's guys we like more than there's guys we like others, of course. But like, I would not be willing to go and say, yes, absolutely, don't even consider a trade down because this guy is the guy at 3. Or on the flip side, go, yeah, trade up, trade a valuable role player for the chance at taking the wrong guy at 3. But I think somebody there does. I just have to believe that somebody in the Pelicans organization will go, yeah, Herb Jones is a nice player, but what the fuck is he going to do for us? We're not close to needing Herb Jones. I love Trey Murphy. I think he's awesome. I don't think that they would move. Well, I mean, Trey for 3 is interesting.
That's what I'm saying is like, if they have this idea that like Ace Bailey is the next Kevin Durant, or they think Trey Johnson is the next Devin Booker. Yeah. The Sixers getting Trey Murphy is good for now, tomorrow. That's the perfect trade candidate for me. Yeah. Where I'm like, oh, there's a player who's 24, turns 25 soon, that is basically entering his prime, has gotten better every year in the league, is someone who, oh my God, the shooting trio of Maxey, McCain, and Trey Murphy. Yeah. I don't even care about defense anymore. Like literally you could sell me on that, especially because Trey's big enough that you don't have to worry about the same things you would with someone like Khan, for example. And he's athletic enough as well. And he, at times in the past, when he didn't have much of an offensive load, was a pretty good defender. The thing that I think about in that scenario is like, their new front office is Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver. They're bold. Like, those two do not care about consensus. They don't care about what outside people think. Their history has been making bold moves. And if they think that one of these guys at the top is that franchise changer, that's a scenario where I think they go, Trey Murphy's a nice player, but he was really good when we had stars, and we don't have stars anymore. And in Trey might even be a star in plain sight candidate, where it's like, you get him. And like, I talk about this, and if you want to make the pro Ace argument, most wings suck when they're 18 years old. Like, the large majority of wings are bad players when they're 18. And let me look at someone like Trey Murphy. Trey was playing at Rice when he was 18. And then he transferred to Virginia, kind of slowly found his footing, ended up becoming a good NBA player. Now he's entering his prime. That archetype of player usually pops in their mid-20s. And that is the argument why I think if there was anyone on the Pelicans, I would go after it's him. And Herb is an awesome player, don't get me wrong, but I have the similar question marks. And then I think he's going to get a huge bag in a year and a half from now. And then we go, okay, well, we kind of wasted the like quote unquote scam contract.
Yeah. I guess to me 2 years, if it was if Herb was here for 1 year, I would say that's not worth trading down. But I think it's the sort of sweet spot of 3 to 7 is kind of a nice thing. I also love Atumani Kamara. If you can pry him from Portland, that's 3 to 11 is a pretty sizable trade down, but then you really got to love one of Derek Queen or Colin Murray Boyles at that point. And I do really like Colin Murray Boyles. Obviously wouldn't take him at 3, but like my kind of guy for sure, as like a ferocious defender, long, big stocks guy, and a high level passer on the offensive end, plays physical. And I was a little bit worried about his athletic testing. I was like, how is it going to be? He plays a little low to the ground, and his testing was really good and way, way better than Derek Queen. And the jumper is not good
It's
now.
Non-existent. Like it's he can't shoot. Like
no.
Once again,
his hand is weird on the ball for sure.
But the thing with Colin Murray Boyles is I'm kind of in between where I'm like, this is the kind of guy that draft Twitter always falls for, that scouts always fall for.
Yes.
And also, oh my God, if it works out, he could be the second or third best player in this draft.
Yeah.
So sure. I'm stuck in between. I think I have him like 9 on my board right now because I'm just like, I don't want to have egg on my face if this guy's awesome.
Yeah.
But also the shooting scares me as a non-5, and just I don't know if the offensive game will translate. If we trade down, that's who Daryl's taking. I
would love if it's down past like 8. I think that's right. I look, he's shot 71% from the line. That's enough for me to go like, he does have nice touch. He has nice touch on the inside. You look at some of the videos of him at the combine taking 3 after 3. It doesn't look great. That's why I wouldn't take him at 3, but he is very good at literally everything else on the floor. And I think he's a high IQ player and a good like team guy. He played on some bad South Carolina teams with almost no help whatsoever. And he had like good body language and still kept making the passes to his teammates as they were missing shot after shot. I think he'd be a really, really nice role player with star upside when you consider like all the stuff he does on the court, like high level role player that is borderline giving you star impact because of how good he is at everything else.
Is there a better context for him in this draft than the Sixers?
No, it's perfect. I mean, like that's exactly
it's like unbelievable. It's like, they have 2 ball handling guards. If Joel is ever healthy, he can space the floor.
Yep.
He is exactly what the Sixers need, but that flaw, that shooting could be the thing that sinks him. And I think that is why, once again, I think that he is 100% a Daryl Morey style prospect just because the analytics are off the chart. The athletic testing's good.
Yep.
Like he is very obviously probably the 4th or 5th best quote unquote star bet in this draft. And he also has this massive thing that feels like has sunk so many prospects that are in that. But the ones who do work out, the Aaron Gordons who's somehow become a good shooter at like 30, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But like the Aaron Gordons, I'm not saying that he's this level of athlete to be clear, but the guys who do tend to work out, like obviously Amen Thompson's like one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen.
Yes.
But the guys that do tend to work out have the perfect blend of skills that Colin Murray Boyles has, which is like everything you said, like is willing to play on the ball, off the ball, is a beast inside. And then defensively is just so versatile.
If you can trade down to get Cam Johnson at 8 and take Colin Murray Boyles, that to me is just like you look at like a top 9 for the Sixers of Maxey, Grimes, Cam, PG, Embiid. Off the bench, McCain, Justin Edwards, Colin Murray Boyles, if you can keep Yabusele, Bona, like that's a really nice team with a lot of flexibility, a lot of upside. You have enough money to sign Grimes and Yabusele in that case because you traded down. It's really nice. There's a lot of really nice like That fits so well. There's so many ways you can win offensively and defensively with that team. I would love to see it.
I know you're not in the Discord, but I literally pitched the same exact thing like a week ago because Cam Johnson has kind of been someone who's been similar to Trey Murphy, I would say, although Trey probably has a little bit more upside because he's super young and Cam's almost like 30 at this point.
Yeah.
But the thing with that is, once again, I feel strongly that no one's going to give up a good role player plus their pick to move up to 3. I think that if we include the Clippers pick, because the Nets are kind of a blank slate right now because they're like, we have to get something. Cam Johnson was just rumored to be like available at the deadline and there were offers for like 2 first-round picks and all this. I think he does have real value is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. But if you move down 5 spots, you fall in love with like Colin Murray Boyles or Khan wouldn't make sense with Cam, but like someone in that mold and you want to take them there. Plus you get, an actually good player who can play for you right away. Best of both worlds.
I'm just so trade down pilled. I'm dying for it. I'll finish with this. The Inquirer just reported that Sirianni and Saquon are headlining a Christian wealth seminar run by a founder with fraud allegations. It is a weirdly rough offseason for Saquon after one of the best years of all time that anyone's ever had. So I'll ask you, Trill, which Sixer would you want to take investment advice from, specifically for Christian wealth investing?
Christian wealth investing. Well, I think Jared's religious, so I think that he would. McCain is, I think.
Yeah, he seems like he would also take a class.
Jared would never lead you astray. He's just
that's true.
He's too pure and good. You know what I mean? Like Jared is just. There's no way that he would ever he wouldn't rug pull you. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
here.
No,
he wouldn't. Okay. He wouldn't try to sell you a Bitcoin and lead you down the wrong path. So I'll go with Jared McCain there.
And who is the person you would least likely to take Christian wealth advice from?
Paul George.
That's fair. That's so
I'm not
fair.
taking any advice from Paul George. Amazing player, amazing talent, but man, some of the things he says on his podcast, I think I've said it before. I think he's the funniest player, the most unintentionally funny player in the history of the NBA.
That might be right. Well, TrillBroDude of the YouKnowBall podcast, Mr. Slop himself. This was very fun. I appreciate you having you here. And hopefully we have some more good things to look forward to in the slop department and in the winning games department.
Thanks for having me.
Taking one more break to talk about our good friend, L.L. Pavorsky and his jewelry store. The thing about LL is he's exactly who you think he is. You know? Like, you don't want a jeweler that is, impish. You don't want a jeweler that doesn't have the juice.
Mm-mm.
LL is bristling with juice. He's got juice coming out of his eyeballs, and he knows what he's doing. And that's what when me and Alyssa went to go look at engagement rings, which we weren't engaged obviously yet, and we did it like a year and a half before I eventually proposed because COVID got in the way. But we went and we were like, let's just check it out. And LL wasn't like pressuring at all, and he wasn't doing like okay, you're gonna buy something today. He was just like, let's take a look. Mm-hmm. You just want to see? We'll see. We don't have to. There's no pressure. There's no forcing your hand. It's just, what kind of stuff are you into? Maybe you don't know, and if you don't know, like we didn't know, then you just try a bunch on and compare them. Take them outside, see how they look in the light. It was a lovely process. Me and Alyssa talk about it all the time. That how just well he handled in a beautiful, comforting, soft hand way. Ella Pavorsky, appointment only. We have over 440 people have bought rings. I'm needing that to get to 500. If we're not at 500 by next playoffs, the Sixers are not going to win anything. Maybe the Sixers aren't in the playoffs even. I need that number to get to 500 so people start getting engaged. Please, as a sponsor, LL makes generous charitable contributions to our charities, Providence Animal Centers and Mama T's Community Fridge, 707 Walnut in Philadelphia, always at llpavorsky.com. Give him a call, 215-627-2252, or email him, Lee at llpavorsky.com. I'm telling you, you're not going to be disappointed. Back to the show.
You didn't even ask me about the draft. I was freaking reading Dan Olinger all morning.
I didn't need it yet. We were talking about other stuff.
To explain why I think Derek Queen is the right pick.
Interesting.
No, I do. I really do. I like that guy. I posted on Instagram. I was like, any guesses of like, did you see it? I said, I was like, what's I called this like the single longest tenured podcast that I've listened to consistently.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, any guesses? And everyone's guessing Call Her Daddy. And I'm like, no, I'm not going on Call Her Daddy. Like, what are we fucking talking about? I'd love to.
That's very funny.
So I've gotten some wild guesses. No one's got it correct.
They're going to be disappointed, I think. They're going to be upset.
No, I mean, like, I think like the OG Sixers people that didn't unfollow me when I got a new job.
Sure.
Are going to be pumped.
Okay, so Sixers people that unfollow you, did you unfollow Sixers people when you got the new job?
No, of course
not. You stay with them.
But I think there's a lot of like Sixers fans that followed me because of my affiliation that like didn't want to see me yapping about James Harden in a Clippers uniform.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we have Lauren Rosen here, formerly of the Sixers, currently of the Los Angeles Clippers. My friend in real life, which is exciting to say.
Guilty as charged.
Lauren, how was your first season with the Clippers?
Well, I know my audience here, Mike.
Yeah, please.
And first of all, I'm so excited to be here with you and your audience.
Oh, come on.
You guys mean a lot to me. And at risk of disappointing them off the jump, I had a great first season with the Clippers. The move was purely job and opportunity based, and it was sort of time for me, and it was a no-brainer based on sort of what my options were. So I got to grow professionally and just have a really good time. It was a great team. It was an overperforming team, which for me, I was with the Sixers from 2018 until 2024. So all good teams, but never did a team overperform where the expectations low and we got to exceed them. And with the Clippers, I got to do that in year one. I mean, doing my research, and it was a quick turnaround. Am I allowed to drink coffee on this show?
Come on, I'll do it too. I'll with you.
I can drink coffee and I can curse, right? Those were my two questions.
You can do whatever you want. Spike's not here.
We're gonna work both of those things in.
Keeping it loose.
So I had a couple weeks to learn all things Clippers, right? And in those projections, the team was going to be the 12th, the 13th seed in the West. They weren't going to make the playoffs. And the season gets off to a really good start. And then Kawhi comes back and then they get better. And then all of a sudden you're jockeying for like the 3 seed and all of this. I mean, internally, it wasn't a surprise. They knew they were talented and they had high aspirations, but I came from the outside, right? So all I had was that external noise going into it, thinking that it was going to be a little bit of a slog and every win was going to be considered a big one. And by the end of the season, they were competitive. Watching the playoffs has been tough because I do really think that fully healthy, the Clippers match up really well with the Timberwolves and with the Thunder. And we didn't get to see it. Obviously, you lose games 1 and 4 of that Western Conference first round series against Denver. And those are opportunities you can't get back. But I think that they were better than their playoff run ended. And it was just fun, though, for that to be the reflection all season long, right? Is being better than expected. And so personally and professionally, it was, to answer your question, it was awesome. And I mean, no disrespect to the tough season that everybody listening had.
A little disrespect. Some amount of disrespect. Some amount of disrespect.
No. All love.
So you took over in 2018. So because the Sixers, their exceed expectations season was the year before you got there, which was the like win the last 16 games and make a playoff run. All of a sudden it became like, oh, this team should make noise way before they were supposed to. Come on.
That photo of Joel and TJ, Joel yelling. Yeah. Oh my, I mean, just
choking him
incredible.
Is what it was. Yeah.
Shout out to Alex Subers for capturing that one. That's like a great sports photo.
Yeah, there's some good ones. What were you, as you look back on your time with the Sixers, and it was full of expectations non-exceeded, what are some of the better moments for you in your job there, I guess, in association with the team? Because it's interesting. I think, like, I'll let you think about that for a second, but it's interesting when you work in sports for a team, you know, part of it is obviously the team's success. And part of it is like just how it is as a workplace and the people that you like to be around and the ups and downs of a regular job. And so I guess how do you think about like your better times with the Sixers?
Well, you teed me off really well, Mike, because I kind of have to explain that pretty regularly when people ask me about my job. Like, it is a job, and it's a really cool job, and I'm so lucky, and there's no other job that I want to be doing. But the same way that the social media team are my coworkers, I kind of try to treat the players, the coaches, they're all just coworkers, right? And as is the case in any work environment, you have the people that you get along with super well. You have the people that you sort of tolerate in your meetings, and you have people that come and go, and it's a workplace. And so when I think about like my best memories, it's like those late night meetings, like draft night, and spending like late, long hours with your favorite coworkers. I made like my best friends to this day. Most of them are no longer with the Sixers, but my best friends to this day are people that I met during my time at the Sixers. So it's like, it's the long nights, it's the long hours with people that you just adore. And then in terms of like memories that would actually be relevant to the fan base, Joel winning in Toronto after losing in Toronto was really special. Watching him walk down that same hallway that he cried in a couple of years before, that bright red hallway at Scotia Bank Arena, and then watching him be able to walk down that same hallway. I mean, I'm super nostalgic. I have like a spatial memory too. So I remember what it felt like to walk down that hallway each year. So to see him do it in such a different manner was really special. But then there are also little ones. Shake Milton scoring 39 in LA, like just memorable things that you didn't have. I know you don't like the bingo card, but like things you didn't have on your bingo card, right? Like Shake scoring 39, Tyrese Maxey scoring 39 as a rookie with no fans in the building. Like no one even, and I love watching the highlights from that game because Tyrese was so tiny and bouncy and like, and that guy is still in there, but to see what he's grown into since then is like such a privilege. Oh man. Okay. I think I'm going to just do those three. Joel winning in Toronto, Shake 39, Tyrese 39.
What was the even just mentioning no fans in the arena is such a jolt of like, that was such a weird basketball viewing experience. What does, when those things come back to you, what do you think about from that year?
So much. Yeah. I mean, like, let's talk about like even something as simple as like the bell ringer tradition, right? Congratulations, by the way, on your journey.
Thank you.
The players just rotated ringing the bell because of,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, because you couldn't bring in an outside person. It literally wasn't allowed. Like we weren't even allowed people that were whatever, tier 1, or eventually when we went back on the road, there were all these restrictions. Like you had to be very transparent about everyone that came into your orbit at any moment. So anything that was superfluous, like bell ringer, was just like not relevant, but they wanted to maintain tradition. They tried really hard to create a similar environment to what we're used to in that building. Yeah. But like the guys like didn't really want to do it. Cool. Like it's my night to ring the bell. And
sure. You gotta let the opposing players ring the bell, or the refs. Get a ref in there.
Honestly, Bill Kennedy would have bodied the bell.
He would have done that.
He would have been spectacular. Yeah, totally. But like, I'm coming up with all these flashbulb moments. By the way, all morning, I'm like, what am I going to talk about on the Ricky? Like, this is the best day of my life. And something that I didn't think about that I'm glad I've come to now is the day of the insurrection, Mike. We had a game. Yeah. Like, while it was happening, and there was no one in the arena. And I hosted this digital pregame show, and it was this weird, like, are we or aren't we going to play the game? Going to do the pregame show? Who's going to ring the bell?
Who's going to ring the bell during the insurrection?
But Mike, like, such specific stuff. Like, like I'm uncomfortable recalling it, and that was 5 years ago. Yeah. So just the weirdest thing. And then also the second year, right? As fans started to come in, and Tyrese and Isaiah and Paul Reed got to experience fans for the first time, because they played playoff series that had some fans in there, but like that was also weird, right? The half playoffs, watching them experience the real NBA for the first time as we ramped back up. That was also special and weirdly specific. My memories are weirdly specific.
No, I think it's right. I think that's sort of like the job part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
because everybody has their version of that, right? Like a lot of people were working the day of the insurrection, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were working maybe before they were comfortable in a space with tons of people after the pandemic. Like we all had our own versions of that. And that's kind of when I talk to people about what it's like to work in my environment, like it is a workplace.
Yeah.
The stakes are different. The vibes are different, but it's a workplace.
But especially there's still like the show must go on type of feeling to it. Like what, having to just sort of, I was wondering what in like a huge blowout, say the Sixers or the Clippers. I'd say Sixers or Clippers lose by like 30 or 40, whatever. It's like, and you can tell it's just like, this is not going to happen tonight. What does your mindset become? Like, how do you go like, okay, so how can I do anything interesting that anyone would want to watch?
So this is why being with one team all season is really fun for me. And I've really enjoyed it. Anytime there's always an if then, right? So if you're down 30 at halftime, all right, what are we going to do with this? And to me, immediately, because my job is to not propaganda is the wrong word. It's a touchy word, but to sort of amplify maybe the positive things that are going on when, and I saw those fan base rankings that you guys reposted this morning. When the fan base is prone to negativity, what can we maybe remind them of? When someone isn't showing up to work, let's talk about who is type of thing. So when you're down 30, the starters are probably going to get pulled. And one of the guys that played in the G League earlier that day is actually probably going to play tonight. So then there's a whole story about what it's like to play for two different teams in one day. And like, how early did you even get to this game? And how many minutes did you play earlier today? Guys that don't normally get a chance that have been working their asses off all season, they're going to get some burn potentially against all-stars, right? Even if it's just for a few minutes. Like which rookie on the Clippers idolized which vet that's playing garbage time for the Nuggets? Which of them played as one of these guys in 2K 3 or 4 years ago, and now they're going to match up? And even if it's for a couple minutes, that's interesting. That's cool. And that's the shift that you make right away in a blowout. Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm sure Kate Scott is listening and nodding along because that was most of her season this year. I do want to give you're very good friends with Kate. I do want to give you the opportunity to say just nice things about Kate because I know how much you love her.
This is the best. This is the greatest question I've ever been asked. Not a question. So here's the thing about Kate. Kate walked into an absolutely impossible situation when she got this job. And she won't say it, but I will. I worked with Mark Zumoff, one of the all-time great local announcers, not just in basketball, in sports. Beloved by a fan base that is paying attention, that is smart, that is listening. So anyone that came in, even if it was a middle-aged white guy from Philly, was going to have a hard time filling those shoes. And they laid down the challenge to a young, gay woman from California to come in here and fill the shoes of someone that traditionally fits the archetype of the beloved local announcer, right? Yeah. Come on in, Kate. You've never lived in Philly. You haven't been full-time in the NBA. Be Mark now. That's literally impossible, Mike. And the stuff that she had to put up with her first season, the messages she got, the threats she got, and I don't want to speak for her, but she overcame a lot in that first season. And the fact that by the end of it, there were people in the stands that wanted to share a beer with her. There were kids that were so excited to see her. The ground she covered in 1 year with the challenge that was put in front of her, that, by the way, I don't think any of those middle-aged men from Philly could have bodied the way that she did because of who she is and what she's had to overcome. I mean, just like incredible stuff. And that's before we talk about the fact that she's just a great person. Like she's a blast to be around. She loves her job. She cares about the fans. She cares about the team. She cares about doing a good job. And not everybody does, you know? So I would say those things. And then I'll tell a quick version of a story that I really like to tell about Kate. She's just so important by existing in the space that she's in. I remember it was probably the beginning of my last season. So this would have been 23, 24. And I was walking out of the tunnel and a couple kids recognized me and they asked me if they could take a photo. I said, sure. They said, where's Kate Scott? And I was like, oh, Kate's in the back. And they were like, oh my gosh, can we meet Kate Scott? I was like, yeah, she's probably going to come out pretty soon. Let me see if she's around. It was early enough in the game that I knew she wasn't busy. And so I texted her and she starts walking towards us and the kids start to like freak out that Kate Scott is in the building walking towards her. And the thing that made it special to me was that all of those kids were young boys. She's not just inspiring girls. Oh, look what you can be. Yes, true. But these young men are growing up in Philly right now with her voice associated with this team.
Yeah.
It's normalized. They idolize her. She's not just like, I get it that she's inspiring young girls, but that narrative is a little played out. She's inspiring everybody. And for me, like walking away from that interaction, like seeing the way that these young men were so excited to see a woman in this role, it like, I get chills thinking about it. So she's a great gal, but she also means a lot. She's doing it the right way. And Philly is very lucky. Again, I know y'all had a tough year, but you're very lucky that she's the one that's sort of stewarding everybody through it.
Yeah, I agree with that. She really is in real life a good hang, and then on the broadcast, I think conveys how much of a good. I think you talk about that with like baseball announcers more, like you're just hanging out with them. But in a bad year where everything is going wrong, you kind of just want someone who is making it less painful. And Kate, I thought did a really good job of that. And also, yeah, I think especially for young kids, you know, it's hard when you're decades older to be like, okay, it's such a shift going from like, I have no memories with this person, but it truly just takes time to get like, oh, I need to establish a connection between local broadcaster who I'm spending so much time with and like positive memories. And that just takes time. And I love Kate. I think she does a great job. She's the best. I got a bunch of questions, but I wanted
I'm excited.
You told me some interesting stuff about like timeouts as a sideline reporter,
Sure.
about getting in the huddle and how Clippers coach Ty Lue handled it. Is that something you can talk about and let the listeners in?
Of course. So as a sideline reporter, every team sort of has different responsibilities, boundaries, expectations, whatever. This was my first season as like the formal broadcast sideline reporter for the Clippers. And my instinct was to sort of like play it slow and integrate myself slowly, make sure everybody's comfortable with me, whatever. One of the responsibilities, and again, this isn't standard across the league, but for a lot of teams, the sideline reporter not participates in the huddles, but is listening in on the huddles to sort of give those huddle reports that you're used to. Okay, Kate says, Taryn was down in the huddle. For me, it's Brian Seaman. Brian says, Lauren was down in that huddle. Lauren, what'd you hear? And I am very lucky. So my sideline partner in LA is Christina Pink. She's been doing it for, I want to say 13 or 14 years. She's also on NFL coverage. So you guys are probably familiar with her from her NFL coverage. And she was like, hey, you got to get in the huddles. My producer said, hey, you got to get in the huddles. And in my head, I'm like, I don't feel like I should be there. Like when they say in the huddles, they mean in the huddles. So it was like my second or third game. And I've been in the NBA for long enough to know that I'd rather just be safe than sorry. And so I pulled Coach Lue aside after his pregame media. And I said, hey, I'm going to start coming to the huddles tonight. And his response was like, yeah, of course you are. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I was very nervous. I was nervous to ask.
Yeah.
And so then I go, and I can't hear anything because it's loud and like there's fans, there's hoopla, and like I'm just like, what is the point of this? And I text Christina, I'm like, what do I do here? She's like, no, you weren't in the huddle. Like you got to be shoulder to shoulder with everybody, and it's fine. I'm like, okay, like here I go. Luckily for me, I had a couple familiar faces, right? So James Harden is a Clipper this year. Nico Batum was a Clipper this year. Mo Bamba was a Clipper at the beginning of the season. PJ Tucker was on the roster. And so I sort of saw that as like my little safe window. Like James knows me. Ty has blessed this. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to just stand right behind James. And the whole time that you're there, it does not get old too, because now I've done a whole season. You just feel like you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You just like shoulder to shoulder, like sweat is there, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, I shouldn't be here. This feels invasive. They don't want me here. Mm-hmm. And the coolest thing about it was that like, I was the only one that felt that way. And Ty is such a genius. Being able to watch him cook in the huddles, like he has this reputation for sort of being a basketball genius. Steve Kerr talks about it a lot. He says that Ty sees the game differently from other coaches that he's worked with. The two of them were coaching Team USA together in the summer. Ty doesn't need replay. Ty sees it. He knows exactly where everybody was, and he's able to regurgitate what just happened. He draws up huddles upside down. That's another thing that I hadn't seen before. Ty draws the huddle.
So he's holding the clipboard and drawing up the play in reverse so that the players can see it.
So that it's right side up for the players. And he's going so fast. So by the way, the first couple huddles, I'm like, I don't even know what, like, I don't speak this language.
Yeah.
And then as I watch more and more, I mean, he's drawing them upside down. Okay. And if you're not watching the video version, you should be, but he's drawing them upside down. Then he flips the clipboard around and then draws a second play upside down. Everybody understands immediately. And then the huddle breaks and that's it. And I'm standing there like, whoa, wow, that was incredible. Ty's a genius. And I also love the way that he like made me feel comfortable from the jump. That was, so the huddle thing is a weirdly specific memory that I'm going to keep, especially for those first couple.
How do you determine when you're watching those huddles, especially as you got more comfortable with it, like what is acceptable to say on the broadcast?
That's a great question because obviously you can't on the broadcast say, okay, this is what they're going to do. Because first of all, what they're going to do based on the huddles oftentimes is a suggestion, right? Because the players are out there reading the game. They don't always run exactly what was drawn up. So you're not going to give it away. You can't. Mm-hmm. For me,
here comes a lob for Zubats. Like you're not
right. No, like you just don't do that.
Yeah.
I can let my producer know, hey, like it looks like this is what they're going to focus on. Maybe then they have a camera that's focusing on something specific, but not on air.
Yeah.
I personally, for all I just said about the brilliance of the huddles, I'm often looking at what's happening before and after Ty's drawing up the play. Who's talking to who? Which vet has his arm around which rookie? What are they talking about? Who's discouraged? Who's encouraging the others? Because then let's say someone's discouraged in the huddle and they have a great moment with a vet and then they go out and score in the first 30 seconds. Then Lauren was in that huddle and she saw PJ Tucker pull Paul Reed aside and clearly the message was received. That's when it's interesting. So for the brilliance of the play calls and the plays that are being drawn up, I am looking a little bit more at those like interpersonal moments that they're having before and after.
Yeah. I always like hearing you talk about that. Are there moments when not non-huddle moments when like as a sideline reporter, you feel in the way or times you've been in the wrong place? Just to be I should.
Yeah, all the time. And I've had to get over that. I think as this was season 8 for me in the NBA. And so what you learn is if you're not directed moving with purpose, you're going to get stomped all over. And so I do kind of understand what the boundaries are, but there are always moments, right? Like a big win in the playoffs, a big win, a really consequential win, Kawhi Leonard's first game back, all this stuff. And you know that you're sort of in the center of the basketball universe in that moment. And I'm like looking around like, am I supposed to be here? And then I hear in my ear, it's like, and Lauren's with Kawhi. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, I am supposed to be here. Like, let's get your shit together and do the hit now. Like it's always surreal. And I do hope that I never lose that because it's what makes it like exciting and worth it. And all the corny stuff that people talk about in their passion jobs. I'm sure you have similar experiences in yours, but yeah, I mean, so I didn't answer your question at all, but the answer is always like, I always kind of feel like maybe I shouldn't be here. Yeah, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing.
I'd feel the same way as a writer on set where you're like, people are working so much and I'm just like, I had a little thought about this one word in there. And there's, people carrying big ladders and fucking sets and everything. What are things about your job that generally make you the most nervous? Because you're doing it the players are nervous sometimes, obviously, as we've seen.
Yeah.
Where are you? Obviously, new organization so early on, but generally you're like, oh, this is one that's tough for me. Whether is it interviewing like a specific kind of player or
no? So to be honest, interviews are the easiest part for me. I like talking to people. I like positioning a player. Like I always use this like analogy. I think people have this perception of like some players aren't animated or some players don't give a good interview. And like I'm talking specifically post game after every win, the sideline reporter interviews a player on the court. And the analogy that I like to give is that as soon as I'm done calling a game, no one asks me to go play basketball for 90 seconds as soon as it's over, right? Like it's crazy what they're making them do. These guys are literally, I'm thinking of Joel, just like dripping sweat off his body. He's just finished something super high pressure. He's exhausted. And they're like, okay, now also go speak your second language on national television, articulately, enthusiastically, and say something funny and charming.
Also be super interesting.
also be super interesting and make everybody love you. It's like, that's a crazy thing to ask of people. And Joel's a good example because it is his second language, but even if it's your first language, it's not your first job and people are really judgmental. So for me, my favorite part is being able to make that experience a little easier for those guys when I can. The stuff that makes me nervous is when I'm solo, right? Because I'm not the story, but I'm trying to help tell it as efficiently and effectively as I can, and then get out of there, right? Because you're here to watch the game. And I want to have that be a more colorful experience for the viewer. And I want them to feel attached to the players that are playing, but they're not there to watch me, right? So for me, it's the stand-ups. It's when I'm alone and all you see on the screen is my face. Like, that's the worst part. And I'm not just saying that. It really is the worst part. The hardest part is at any time you do something for the first time. And I think that's everybody, right? That's just, that's having a job. I'm going to be on my like corny, I don't know how much RTRS Brene Brown crossover there is. Maybe none. Maybe it's literally just me. Maybe
there's got to be some.
If you're with me, let me know. But she talks about how like the first time, she calls it FFTs, fucking first times. And it's like, that's the hardest part. Every time you do something for the first time, anytime you do something for the first time, that's the hardest it'll ever be. And you got to just like get through that first time. And then it's like 80% easier. But yeah, I've done a lot of stuff for the first time this year. And you got to act like it's not your first time, because otherwise, if you're nervous or if you're acting like you haven't been there before, they'll smell that on you right away.
For sure.
So you got to act like it's not your first time, get through your first time, and then everything gets a lot easier.
What do you say before a post-game interview? You pull a player aside, PJ Tucker, Nico Batum, whoever. Yeah. What's the moment before the camera goes live? Like, what is that like setting up with them moment?
It depends on who it is. If it's a guy that's used to doing it, sometimes there's no pre-moment. It's like you've done 5 of the last 7 walk-off interviews anyway. We both know what each other is here to do. Let's talk about how great you were and then get you back to the locker room. Sometimes, like with my Clippers first season, like they hadn't met me yet because I joined so late. I was at Sixers training camp this year.
Wow.
I found out about the Clippers job at Sixers training camp this year towards the end. So I didn't have a training camp with the Clippers. I didn't have a preseason with the Clippers. I hadn't met these guys. And now I'm at Ivica Zubac's. English is his second language. He's 1,000,000 feet tall. I don't even know if he can hear me. It's important that I introduce myself to him before we get going, just because I want you to feel comfortable. So that's a good example. Sometimes I'm literally saying, hi, I'm Lauren. And he says, hi, I'm Ivica. And I say, do you prefer to be called Ivica than Big Zoo? Because everybody calls you Big Zoo. And he's like, yeah, I really like Ivica. Okay, cool. Say less. Good to know. Because that's what I'm going to refer to you as.
Yeah.
Sometimes guys are really tired and you can tell. I'll say, do you need a second? And sometimes they'll be like, no, let's just do it. And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, please. And I'm like, okay, like here, futz around with your towel for a little bit. We can take a breath and we're ready to go. But yeah, it's different for everyone. Sometimes it's nothing. And sometimes we'll have a whole little pre-chat.
Are there times when I'm interested in like broadcasting teams coming together? It's like, Nuggets, Clippers, or like Sixers, Raptors or something. And you guys know each other because the players are obviously competing on the court. Is there some competition among broadcast teams of different teams, or even whether they're rival teams, or it's like, I fucking hate the Grizzlies guys or whatever it is? Like, is there something like that?
Competition, I would say probably not. But there's little stuff in there, right? Sure. Like it's a small community. So anytime, listen, I think a lot about guys that know exactly who was drafted ahead of them. Like the guys that were drafted 20th and they can name 1 through 19. It's like, I go into buildings now every year of teams that rejected me for jobs that I thought I was perfect for. So it's not like I have any like beef with whoever has the job. All my counterparts are lovely and we're all friends, which is awesome and helpful because we help each other. But I'll walk in there with a little bit of chip on my shoulder. I look around. I'm like, okay, you guys didn't want me. All right, I'm going to kill it tonight. Like that exists. But no,
certainly does for players for sure.
Yeah. And it's the same, right? It's super competitive. You wait a really long time. You work really hard in the shadows and then you finally get your opportunity and you have to capitalize. It's not the same, but you watch other people getting opportunities before you do. And that stuff is tough. But that's all like the internal monologue and it's the games you play with yourself to get yourself up a little more for the game. But in terms of like broadcaster beef, I don't think so. Maybe I just haven't been around long enough. No.
I bet Kate has some answers that she would say off air. That's what I bet.
You'll have to ask her.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So you mentioned James Harden, Nick Batum, obviously guys who had some success here and here with you. What was it like? What was your relationship with them like with the Sixers and now like going to a new team with them and feeling like, because they're with also a new team as well. Like, do you feel, did they gravitate to you in some way of like, oh, here's a safe person?
Yeah, it was such a relief. I'm not even going to lie to you. I feel very lucky. Like I said, 8th season, so many Sixers came in and out in my 6 years that even when I was still with the Sixers, whenever an opposing team would come back to town, there was always like 1 or 2 guys that I had a touch point or 2 with. So you feel a sense of relief in that way. But those, of course, weren't players that I was working with on a day-to-day. So going to the Clippers, understanding that I was walking into an environment where I had some friendly relationships was, it really was helpful. I didn't really know how it would go. James obviously is this like larger than life figure. And I have always played it lower and slower with the superstars because everybody wants a piece. Everybody wants their time. I just kind of like to low and slow. And I mean, after my first game that I was there, James stepped off the podium. He came straight over to me. He said, "Welcome to Cali. It's so good to see you, girl." And like gave me a big hug and like that type of thing. It just meant the world to me because it was like an old friend from an old place. And he and I we're not close or anything, but just the fact that he was aware that I had moved across the country and he sort of said, "Hey, welcome. You're going to love it here." Like that stuff does matter. It does make a difference. Same thing with Nico. Nico's so easy to work with. He's so just like relaxed and chilled out all the time that being in a pregame locker room situation with him, it immediately felt like how it felt the previous season with the Sixers, right? And so there's a comfort level, right? I need a certain player's take on something that happened around the league today. I know that Nico or James, like those guys were my safe space early in the season, Mo Bamba, that I wouldn't have to like tiptoe around quite as much as I got to know, again, my new coworkers. Everyone that's taken a new job knows what it's like to like not really want to walk into someone's office and ask the silly question that you're not sure how to operate on a new task, whatever. If you go into a new job and there's 3 or 4 former coworkers there, you're obviously going to ask them first how to do the stuff you don't know how to do. So I would say that's what it was like. I cannot say enough good things about that group. They were so helpful. They were so kind, and still are. So I'm lucky. Nicest Sixer who isn't Tyrese Maxey or your guy Tobias Harris, who I know you have a ton of affection for that maybe we don't want to hear about right now. Maybe the listeners don't need to hear that. Okay, so you're just gonna put me on blast for that being my guy, and then I can't even explain why. You look, I'm sure he's a lovely coworker. That's wild. He's a lovely coworker, I'm sure. And that's the part of job. It's your job. It's not my job. My job is needing them to win some fucking games. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Just to bring in a callback here. The game where the Sixers were wearing the black Boathouse Row uniforms and Tobias had been snubbed for All-Star during that 2020 or 2021 season. Okay. And he absolutely went off and I'm an All-Star. And he's like, that was so cool to see just because he's the best guy and he deals with he takes a lot. You said they didn't want to hear about it. They're going to be forced to hear about it. Yeah, I hear it. It's fine. In a short little snackable way. He, like Kate Scott, took such a beating. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And he really handled it with more grace than anyone I've ever seen in that same position. And now I've been seeing people in that position for a decade. He really handled it with a ton of grace. I understand that the dollar signs on the contract give Philly fans a lot of problems, but what would you have done presented with a massive amount? Would you say, "Oh no, sorry, I think I should take a little less"? You would not. I would have taken a charge once in a while, is all I'm saying. Just maybe one a year. In his defense, he's very online too. He thought it was funny that he hadn't taken any yet. Like he knows he's in on the joke. He's laughing with you. He's the best guy. He dealt with so much. And so his victories to me, again, it doesn't matter. Listen, everybody can think about it in the context of their own lives. When you've been at your most financially secure and your least financially secure, when you wake up in the morning, you're still upset about the girl that broke your heart the day before. Sure. you're still upset about the family member that's going through something or is sick or has been in like those
money
human things.
Money doesn't fix everything. Yeah.
Those human things are the same. And does it make your life easier? 100%, absolutely. But every single player in the NBA is having that experience of their life being easier based on their financial situation.
Sure.
They're also all still people that are dealing with a lot. And Tobias really, he handled it really well.
Yeah, he did. All right.
So to answer your question.
Yes.
The nicest? Did you say who's the nicest?
Yeah, the best hang. Obviously, you're going to say Maxey, but I figured it outside of Maxey.
Well, no, Maxey's got a little, and you guys saw it this year. Like he's got a little.
I meant to deal with for you in the context of your job the most.
Yeah, no. There's only one answer to this question, and the answer to this question is Boban Marjanovic. He is everything that you hope that he is. All the rumors of his kindness, his generosity, his larger than life, the vibes that you see, they're all real, and it's not performative. He's really just like the big friendly giant, like describes 20% of who he is. Like he's just the loveliest, most full of joy, great listener, interested in your life, wants everybody around him to be happy. So just nicest, just like, and everybody's had that experience. Ask any player in the NBA that played with Boban for 5 minutes and they had that exact same experience. So there, I mean, I could do honorable mention for this one for years, but if you only want one answer, I'm going to go with Boban.
Just rattle off some honorable mentions that you like.
I mean, DeAndre Jordan is another good one.
Okay.
I worked with him for 5 minutes, right? And the Clippers and the Nuggets played about 55 times this season. And having him on the opponent bench, I mean, my first game with the Clippers was with the Nuggets. It was against the Nuggets. And so walking into that building when I was so nervous and just absolutely freaked out and acting like I was cool as a cucumber, and seeing DJ on the court warming up as the first person that I saw when I got there, give me a big hug. Oh my God, what are you doing here? How'd the Clippers poach you? Blah, blah, blah. Like just so lovely and interested in other people's lives. DJ, Boban, nicest. You said nicest.
Just the most pleasant to work with.
George Niang, oh my God. Like just guys that people love to have around, I think are the way I'll answer this question.
And that I think is part of like why those guys get contracts. Like it's not just on-court stuff. I do think that is
stuff
regardless of whether it matters to fan bases or really matters to like team success. I do think it matters towards teams giving these guys contracts and letting them be on the roster.
I'm a huge intangibles guy. Like and it's funny because I've had like, listen, I have a good relationship with Daryl. I'm so grateful for like the way that he's listened to me over time and gone back and forth with me here and there. Not all executives do that. No one has to do that with the digital reporter. Like who cares? And Daryl and I have had some like thoughtful discourse about the intangibles. And to me, I really do believe that the guy that keeps the huddle alive, whether or not he's playing on that night, is an important person to have on the roster. Like I believe in the George Niangs of the locker room in a tense moment, being able to say something funny that makes the guys that were just bickering with each other both start laughing is important. So you're right. Is it more important than the talent that's going to push you over the edge in a game 7? Probably not. But does it like keep the ecosystem healthy? Yes. So I'd say DeAndre Jordan, Boban, George. I'm definitely forgetting some guys, but those are the guys.
You told me you wanted to mention Korkmaz in this.
Oh, Ferk, sweet Ferk. Yeah, like you keep the ecosystem alive when you're a good friend, when you're a good listener, and those guys are for sure.
A Sixers Clippers finals next year would look like what?
Not impossible, by the way. It would look like, do you remember that old meme? I don't even remember where it came from, but there's someone in a rainy crowd holding a sign that says, "I just hope both teams have fun."
Yeah, that'd be
like
you.
That it would look kind of like that. And I would want the Clippers to win. Like I'm not like, come on, like don't be silly.
Sure.
But it would be really cool on a lot of levels, right? Like I will always, for the rest of time, root for Joel's success. I will root for Tyrese's success. And so I would love to see them reach their first finals together next season after the season they had this year. I mean, like, and it's not impossible. The East is weak. It's not impossible.
Sure. Two deeply cursed franchises that have employed you.
Well, so that's where I was.
Are you the common denominator? Is that the problem?
I'm actually not, because I have made the playoffs every year.
Wow.
So
what a stat.
So thank you. So has James Harden, by the way.
There you go.
So, no, I mean, yeah, think about the stories. I mean, for James Harden to make a finals, like it would be great, Mike. It would be great.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I hope we get that. I hope we get that, Lauren.
I would love that. And you guys got to ring the bell again when we get there.
Okay. Well, maybe they let you do it. As Sixers Clippers, all the people that played for both teams get to do both. And
we got to get you to Intuit Dome. That's important as well.
I do have to get that.
We've gone 40 minutes. We haven't talked about Intuit Dome.
I know everybody wants to. Every Clippers employee wants to talk about Intuit Dome. It's fine.
But it's not smoke. That building is incredible. Mike.
It's a nice building.
It makes
looks
all
a
the
little
other
weird looks weird from the outside.
Whatever. It looks beautiful. Okay. No, it's gorgeous. Okay. She's perfect.
Right. You're happy with it. I'm happy with it.
She's
Lauren Rosen, thank you so much for coming on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez. It was a long time coming. I'm glad we got you, and I hope you have a wonderful offseason, and we see you in the championship next year.
Listen, I hope so too. And I hope I get to come back here before that happens. Yeah. Because this really, let me just for a second.
Please.
I have listened to you guys consistently for 7 years. No, seriously. And going to the Clippers this year, the first thing I did was download all the Clippers podcasts, because this is how people like me learn what the fan base is really like. And you guys have this stranglehold on the core Sixers fans, which by the way
we are strangling them.
Core NBA fans. No, but seriously, when I was, because whatever it was, 7 years ago, I had to learn the Sixers the way I've had to learn the Clippers this year. I was a transplant there too. And the best way, beyond watching the games and reading bios and whatever, is to listen to what the core fan base is experiencing. And I think you guys do that better than literally anyone else in the league. I've been a fan for a long time. I literally still listen. I don't have to. Why do I still listen to this Sixers podcast? Because we're friends, probably. If we weren't friends, maybe I would have let it go by now. But it's good content. I still care about the team. I get why so many people write in and say, I moved to Buffalo or Tokyo or whatever, and I still listen to the podcast, and I'm living and dying by what's happening with Joel's knee, right? I get it. And so I just have so much love for you guys and for the people that listen to this show. And I always will. That's all.
Lauren, that was very nice. Thank you for coming on. We'll talk to you soon. Well, that was nice. That was a nice one. I had a lot of good chat. I think I did okay with the ads.
Yeah, that was great. I think this is I'm trying to think of pod length history, and I think aside from draft pods, which normally go pretty long.
No.
And we did a pod once where Spike read all of the emails that we had left over. That was a very long pod. This is up there with one of the long ones. So
just do me a favor and just cut everything I say in it, and just let the guests talk. Mm-hmm. That'd be good. Well, thank you for listening. Spike will be back on Wednesday, and more draft talk to come.
I won't fuck with you.
CJ, I was like, what, how do we end this? CJ, are you down with TTP?
Yeah, Lickface.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you! Time for plan B.